Guys, the crypto market is exploding. One all-time high after another for Bitcoin. But the altcoins are also slowly but surely starting to pick up. You can see that the crypto bubble is glowing green like it hasn't in a long time. 1.56 billion has flowed into the ETFs. You can see here there hasn't been such a big bar in an incredibly long time. And if you look at this by funds, meaning who invested, we see that BlackRock alone put nearly $500 million into the Bitcoin ETFs, but also $300.9 million into Ethereum. So BlackRock really stepped on the gas here. Super exciting, and apparently this is exactly what the market needed again. But we'll also go through the liquidity heat map. If we compare this over a week for us with Ethereum, that's now the case. We only have a small chunk of liquidations left, and below that there's quite a bit more again. But I also want to show you this with Bitcoin. At the moment, Bitcoin has a vacuum, if you know what I mean. We haven't had any volatility from past prices above this level. Then you see up to around 120,000. There's still something here. Let's also go through this price target. And below that, there's quite a bit more again. But if we also look at the liquidation heat map, at the moment, there isn't really any active attempt to heavily short. You can tell because we don't have any liquidations above us. Of course, in such a pumping market, you shouldn't be shorting much. I did it, but I always made sure to hedge myself well. I'll show you that on the chart now as well. And with that, let's dive in with Bitcoin. We'll also go through Ethereum because Ethereum is about to reach a super critical zone, which I will definitely short again. But I'll show you that in a moment. Let's go through Bitcoin first. In the last video, I showed you that I have two zones where I enter shorts. And guys, I actually did that. Let me switch to the 4-hour chart so you can see it better because I had marked that we have a liquidation zone here and another liquidation zone here. In fact, I shorted both, but I secured my position very quickly. And these are the positions. And this should also serve as a good example for you of why I always say it's important to secure your positions. Because if I hadn't done that, so I went short twice here, but immediately set my stop loss to break even or just slightly in profit and I got stopped out. I did the same thing again here. So this was the first liquidation zone I mentioned in the chart. That was the second liquidation zone. I also caught that one well, but then quickly set the stop loss here too, just barely into profit. It was the same with Ethereum. With Ethereum, if we look here, this was the first time I was stopped out at break even. Then I opened a short here, compounded it again in this price range because of a liquidation zone. And here too, as soon as my stop loss was in profit, I moved it to break even or just slightly into profit, and this position was also stopped out, which was really important. If I had set my stop loss much higher here or not set a stop loss at all, this position wouldn't look so good at the current moment. And with a market like this, which you simply can't predict will explode like that, you have to be honest, right, that now Bitcoin in such a short time somewhat was the peak, almost 119,000 US dollars. No one can really predict exactly when that will happen, and that's why it's important to protect yourself. That means these liquidation zones have always worked well so far, and in this case, fortunately, we secured them very quickly. We're leaving those out for now. We still have some below, but they'll be added back in with updates once the market calms down a bit. So what could be a possible price target now? I want to show you something on the daily chart so you can understand what I'm about to show you. If we go in and use the Fibonacci retracement, because we are now in a territory where Bitcoin hasn't been before, that means there hasn't been any previous trading volume here where you could say we'll encounter support or resistance. I want to show you something here. In this case, as a small example, we have 119,787 and 132,130 as the next possible Fibonacci retracement levels. Why do these work so well? That was our last high to the last low before we broke through it to the upside. That means we've broken through our one level to the upside again and can use this extension as possible price targets. Does this really work that well? I'll give you another example for that as well. Because if I zoom out here, and we also had from this high to this low, we didn't know where our support might be and where things could go from there. That means if we draw this in here and do exactly the same thing I'll show you now, this was our last all-time high. I can still adjust that a little bit. Before we then moved up and entered a territory where Bitcoin had never been before, we were actually able to rely on the Fibonacci retracement here. And you can see that we had the 2.272 as a strong resistance level, but also the 2.414. And those were prices that we hadn't reached before. But you can also see here how strongly and intensely the 2.0 Fibonacci retracement was respected here as an extension. And these are exactly the kinds of Fibonacci levels you can use when you don't yet have new price targets. But I wouldn't give them as much weight anymore now, since we've made a new high and a new low. Of course, you could still use it, that's 124,000. In this case, what really matters to me now is what happens at the next levels around 119,742, give or take a little. That could be very, very interesting for us right now. You can also see how well the 0.786 level is respected here as support exactly. I also want to quickly show you the follow-up, perhaps even the 132,000 level could be even more interesting if we look at it purely from a trendline perspective. I actually noticed this on the chart yesterday when I was on my smartphone and analyzing the chart a bit. If we look closely at the weekly chart here, we observe a beautifully and consistently respected upward trend line that has worked almost frighteningly well. If we take a much closer look now, here we had a clear rejection and subsequently entered a stronger, more significant correction. Here we had a rejection and entered a stronger correction. If we look at this here, should the market continue to pump like this, then we could probably reach the 1.618 Fibonacci level, which could bring us another rejection somewhere in this price range, as we might then reach around 132,000 US dollars. But that's still just speculation for the future. We really need to see what new liquidations above us might indicate. Let's move on to Ethereum. Ethereum is also super exciting. Guys, we're now reaching a critical level where I'm going to open a risk short again. Ethereum has also had an incredible pump, and we've now actually broken out above my key level here, which was very, very important to me because that was our last resistance that held here. We can also go further back. Here it was a resistance, here it was all support, and these were simply important levels that we needed to break through to the upside. And my very next key level above is exactly in line with a significant bearish Fibonacci retracement, which is precisely why I am actually anticipating a notable correction here in my current trade. And that's exactly the 0.618, and the 0.618 Fibonacci retracement is actually the biggest rejection zone, right? Or in this golden pocket that forms here next to the 0.786, but that one doesn't occur as often as the 0.618. And it's precisely in this price range that I'm now ready to take my short purely based on the Fibonacci level. Of course, I'll secure this with a stop loss, but if we test this area, I'm ready to go short. At 0.65, I would compound a bit more. And just above that, somewhere around here, I'll have to see where the liquidation levels are once they've formed. I'll set my stop loss in case we actually continue moving parabolically. Because what hasn't happened yet is we can also see here how strongly the 0.5 Fibonacci was respected, but we haven't had a retest of the key level or of this new support zone, which backed in, and these are the interesting levels from the last market cycle was where we regularly found support. Exactly this little yellow line that we see here. And so my expectation now is, should we come down here and actually correct again well, I'd actually prefer if we just kept going parabolically, then I would close my position here. Also scale my long position, the one I have. Because here I will also close part of my long position again so that I can scale back into the position if there's a correction. I'll show you in a moment on Bitget what I still have open there. But that's my goal now, to take some partial profits here, to scale a bit here, because you know this from my previous videos. If we break through here, that would be the opportunity for me to say, okay, we'll do a retest somewhere here and could finally see higher prices again. And I want to use that to realize profits and to scale my position. And now I'll show you the position I'm talking about. This is my Ethereum long position, which is now almost 11,000 US dollars in profit, actually a bit more than 11,000 US dollars. So I've realized 4,700 here and 6,530 are still open at the moment. I'm going to take out a portion now at the Fibonacci level and then scale back in on a possible correction because my entry price here was 2,105. That also actually looks very good. There are still just under 1,000 US dollars open here and a little over 2,100 US dollars have been realized. I did the same thing with the 100x position I took with you back then. I'm also going to take a portion of that out now and then scale in again, because that's really just a fun position I took for you guys, so I could show you how to scale with 100x leverage and how you can get more profits out of it. Unfortunately, I missed the opportunity because my entry was always very, very tight. Otherwise, this would already be a fantastic position as well. But then we also have the trading bots. Let's go in here. You can see here the grid bot has actually generated 219 US dollars and all of that in 22 days. So it's really been performing well. This is the neutral one where I invested half in Ethereum and the other half actually in my USDT. And then we also have the martingale bots, which just run like a vehicle. There's not much to say about that. 8 days, $85, again, a really good result. I'll also close that one briefly at the 0.618 mark and then reopen it further down. And the other one, I'll just let it run continuously so that we have a reference example. Yeah. Because that's actually the small trading bot with only $1,590 in it, but it's now been running for 126 days and has never really been at a loss and has been realizing profits the whole time. And finally, Bitget is holding a trading event. $6 million will be distributed among all the participants, yeah. Of course, it's based on ranking, but I'll be creating a team for it. If you want to join, I'll show it in the next video as well, or you can join the Telegram group. The link is in the video description. I'll share everything there once I've set it up. If we have at least 10 people, then we can take part and share a portion of the profits. Of course, we'll need to make sure we trade profitably, but that shouldn't be a problem in this case. Otherwise, I'd appreciate it if you leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see each other next time. Ciao!